And we are live. This is our first Today I Learnt video. I'm with Nat Gunn. Hey, Nat.
Hey.
This show is about us exploring all things learning and discovering new things. And our first topic today is I found on one of my favorite LinkedIn groups, Effective Fun Training Techniques. And David's posted an article on 7 ways to simplify and de-stress your upcoming presentations. We've just done a webinar on presentations, so I thought this would be a cool topic for us to check out and maybe discuss what they're offering and then maybe offer our own advice. I'll link the actual blog in the comments below. Nat, so the first topic that they talk about, and there's a general intro, is accept the reality.
Yeah, this was a real good one. I think this is a great tip to anyone who is doing presentations, especially if you're really anxious about giving a presentation. And this article definitely seems to be pitched at people that are freaking out a little bit about it. But the reality is it never goes the same way. I used to do quite a lot of drama, and it was a bit the same there. You know, every show would be slightly different because there's going to be a line dropped. There's going to be something that happens slightly different. And you have to embrace that and not get too worried about it. Perfection doesn't exist.
Yeah, as someone who's a big visualizer, one of the big things I had to imagine, as I imagined how the session will run in my mind, but not being locked in on that and not being let down when it doesn't go that way, and always expecting that, hey, it's going to be a little bit left or a little bit right, but yeah, there's always going to be problems as well.
That's right, and part of that is not trying to memorize every single word in your presentation. So you're better to memorize your key points, your hitters, and have a little bit of scope there for sort of your personality to come out. And I still do practice sort of the opening lines, the finishing lines, and then just sort of your conversation starters or the paragraph starters, and allow for a little bit of room of a bit of ad lib in between a presentation. It's going to make you sound a lot more natural, a lot more genuine.
Cool. Yes. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. The next piece was prepare for the worst. I think we've already kind of touched on that. So I guess prepare for the worst to me is that classic thing where you always know technology is going to fail, so always have a backup. So if you're going to use PowerPoint, have some slides sitting, some printouts, just in case it doesn't work.
Yeah, both of us coming from a training background, we've had this one sort of drummed into us, haven't we? Right, prepare for the worst. Be careful though. I think if you don't want to spend more time worrying about the things that could go wrong than spending positive time thinking about how it's going to go right and how you're going to feel. And you know, I'm a big believer in visualization, and so I agree with the article in terms of you do need to think about these things. You know, if your PowerPoint presentation doesn't work on the day. I did a speech competition once where my entire speech was me talking to a video of someone, and the video didn't work, and it was terrible, and it fell flat. And I probably should have spent a wee bit more time sort of thinking about what was going to happen if the tech didn't work in that situation. So it's good advice, but don't let it rattle you. Don't spend hours writing down every single thing that might go wrong, because especially if you're a bit anxious about presentations, that could be quite detrimental.
I guess it's maybe instead of prepare for the worst, it could be make sure the basics are covered. So if you've got visuals, you have some sort of backup for your visuals. You have a room to present in, maybe some chairs. So once you've got the basics there, and then the actual session can go ahead, that's all you need to worry about, because things are going to go wrong. And
don't be afraid to think on your feet.
Cool as. The next one, minimize workload. To be honest, this has been a problem for mine, and I think it still is, right? So
I really like this. We did our first webinar last week, and we were, Carl and I are really bad when we get together, we start brainstorming, we should try this, we should try that, maybe we could do this. And I think I said to you probably about a dozen times, let's just keep it really simple and get something that's simple done well, rather than try to do everything in one presentation and have too many things that can go wrong. So it sits quite well with the first one around preparing for the worst. Think about minimize your product. a presentation is actually about the person speaking. And so sometimes if you're trying to do too much and you've got all these other things happening, you can actually lose the message and the sort of importance of what you're saying. So minimize your workload, keep it nice and simple. Don't go nuts on a 500 slide deck or a whole lot of technical technology that's going to potentially enhance, but also maybe actually ruin a good presentation.
Are you getting a flashback to that activity I designed around? It's based on American Idol, and you had to be like a sales idol.
Yeah.
And you had to have 3 judges. Everyone had to be broken into groups. Each person had to have 30 seconds to do their sales pitch, and everyone had to give different feedback, but in the mimicking the different types of judges and line it with different personality profiles. And it's like the most complicated, but on paper sounded cool. But I got eye rolled pretty hard when I tried to roll that out. So I guess it's the same thing, right? Like, what's the core thing you're trying to hit? Because if you try to put too much in, there's more areas for it to fail.
Yeah, yep. And I think something else to add to that is minimize your audience's workload as well. So if you're going to give a presentation and it's got a whole lot of technical detail and sort of too much for the audience to handle coming through those ears, a big tip that I have is what's on your slides, what's in your presentation, and what's actually a handout. What are those things that you want your audience to take away? And if it's technical and if it's really detailed, then go for the handout option. You don't need to say every single thing that you know. It's not about sort of overwhelming the audience with all of your knowledge.
Yeah. So it's like minimize your workload, but also minimize the cognitive load on your audience.
Exactly. One really well-made point is going to be a lot more memorable than 20 detailed facts. So.
Okay, next one. Make peace with silence. Ooh, I'm a big fan of this. Because we made if you check out Udemy, How to Be Epic Trainer, we talk about silence a lot. And silence is a good thing in training. And when you're just starting out, it's the thing that freaks you out the most. What do you think about that, Nat?
Yeah, totally agree. And it does become your friend when you learn how to use silence. And potentially silence is really good too, but variation in pace and tone as well. That's sort of part of that. One thing that I'm a fast talker and I get really excited. Someone gave me a tip once. It was actually when I first started delivering webinars, and webinars are a wee bit different because you don't have the visual cues that you have from an audience that you do like when you're live in front of an audience. And so it becomes really easy to try to fill in the silence or answer your own questions straight away. And so the advice I had was count to 10. So just silently in your head, if you ask a question, instead of jumping in and answering it for yourself, count to 10 silently, and you'll never get to 10. Because I'll tell you a little trick, the audience is more scared of the silence than you are. And so once you start thinking it like in those terms, silence is actually a tool. Cool.
I think I remember having the same, but it was 8 seconds, but never got to 8. So 10 definitely would never get to 10 unless you're practicing by yourself. So yes, make peace with silence. Totally agree with that one. Plan for questions. I think this kind of links to silence, to be honest. What do you think?
Yeah, yes, and I think it's about putting yourself in the audience's shoes as well. So instead of thinking about what you are trying to get towards your audience, what are your audience sitting in the audience for? Why are they there? What do they want to get out of your presentation? And that can really help with your prep.
Cool, and also if you know your session really well and you're reading the audience and you might be feeling that they're a little low in energy, throwing a question just to reaffirm that they're listening also kind of gets the enthusiasm back in. Also, if you're struggling with potential silence, maybe rephrasing and putting it back to the audience as a question may jog their memories and help them out as well.
Rhetorical questions are also really useful as well. If you don't have the forum for Q&A, you can still use rhetorical questions to get the audience thinking. Can be quite useful too.
Cool as. Next one, have your first few seconds prepared. Nat, you already said this when we were talking about planning.
Yeah, it's a big one. So you don't need to have every single word memorized, but an audience you're going to grab their attention in the first sort of 3-10 seconds. So you want to make sure that you're convincing right from the start, and it just helps get rid of those nerves. So if you know the beginning of your presentation really well, you'll find that the rest will flow. So big one there. Yeah.
Cool, and I think it's almost exactly the same for the last few seconds. And that's where you need to hit your home runs as well. You might have a shaky start, but if you nail the end, it doesn't matter, right? Like it all comes together. I've had a lot of sessions like that as well.
Yeah. And a lot of people have different opinions about the thanking the audience. So I'm a big thanker. I like to thank people for their time. I like to thank them for listening. There's a school of thought that you shouldn't have to thank your audience because you're giving them something and that they should be thanking you for their time. And I guess it's all about how you think and what you're doing. It'd be an interesting thing to have in the comments to see what other people think about that, because I'm a bit on the fence.
It's funny because kind of random, but when I was in Singapore and I brought this new lens for my camera, I said share to the Chinese person, which is thank you. And he said, to the Chinese salesman, he said, no, I thank you in this situation. I'm like, oh yeah, like I gave him money for something and he made money, right? Like, and I still thanked him for like probably, making some money off me. So yeah, he kind of smiled at that, but it's the same thing. But I kind of get it.
I'd probably say reiterating the key point is more important. So if you think about the audience again, what do you want them to remember? What do you want them to leave? So in the article, it says, try closing on a positive note. So it gives the example of, let's make this our best year yet. Something you want them to be uplifted. You want them to be inspired. So what's the point you're trying to make in your presentation? And is there a key phrase or a term that you can reiterate, that you can repeat? Repetition is a great thing in any presentation.
Yeah, you could almost change this to have a call to action at the end and know it. Right? So what are they going to do when they leave? So if you've done a sales training, what are the sales things they're going to do? If you've done a leadership training or presentation, what are they going to do to follow through on that as well? So yeah, all awesome stuff. That's all 7 of them, Nat. Is there anything that you think is missing from this list?
Oh, I think you could go on forever and ever. We've got a whole learning act on presentation.
Would you?
I think it's a pretty good list. I think there's, again, I think it's very much aimed at someone who's maybe just a wee bit nervous, or there's a lot of stuff that you can go into a wee bit more detail. I wouldn't say I disagree with anything on the list.
No, I definitely wouldn't. Maybe just phrased a little different than how we were talking about it, but I think they hit all the key points. Probably the only thing I think is missing from this is around time management, because when I'm a bit stressed out, I kind of lose track of time. It's either too short or too long. So potentially a tip around how you're going to track your time, or breaking up your presentation into chunks so you stay on track, or even have a wingman in the crowd to help you stay on track. That'd probably be the only thing I think is missing.
And practice. You can't underestimate how important practice is. People that speak really well, you kind of get this illusion that they've gone up there and it's all just flowing from the top of their head, and that they're really eloquent and they've got this great summary and everything it just comes out naturally, but it doesn't. Good speakers spend a lot of time practicing their craft. Public speaking, giving presentations is a skill, and like any other skill, you get better with practice. So that's a key for me.
Yeah, I know a lot of trainers that go, oh, I can wing it. I just kind of need to know it a bit, but they're really good at winging content they know really well. When to become an awesome facilitator / trainer, you need to be able to pick up stuff and deliver that, right? So you don't need to be an expert to deliver a great session. So exactly. Practice and knowledge.
And I've found from experience, when I'm delivering the same presentation or a training session or whatever it is over and over again, it's about the 3rd or 4th one that I normally hit the sweet spot and have a really great session, because the more times you repeat it, the more practiced you are, the more natural it sounds, and the least rehearsed it sounds as well, which is kind of funny.
Especially if you're not an expert, you've got all these stories from all the previous sessions as well. So you start speaking less and letting your stories tell more. So very cool stuff. Well, I think we pretty much covered it all, Nat. I think this has been a pretty good blog. we'll post this video up on the actual blog on the actual post in LinkedIn, so you can all go check it out.